So Ward Laboratories developed their own, so to speak, soil health assessment test about 2 years ago, where we took the CO2 respiration, that's a 24-hour test, and the water-extractable organic carbon and nitrogen, and the water-extractable nitrate and ammonium, took that from one test, and then we added our regular soil test for rest of the nutrients except for nitrogen. And I thought it made a pretty good package. Oh, yeah, and then one other thing we added was the soil aggregate test, and we called it a modified test because we just do the first part where we take a soil that's been dried and ground, and then it's sieved through a 2-millimeter sieve, and then we sieve off soil to 1 millimeter, take the soil of that, and we put that in a sieve at 250 microns or 0.25 millimeter, and then dip it about 180 times in water, up and down, and the water will dissolve the aggregates if they're not water stable, and all that silt and clay goes through the sieve, and there'll be some large sand particles on the sieve, but rest of it goes through. And so then we measure the amount of soil that went through. We know how much we put on the sieve. We measure what went through, and the difference is what's water stable. So it's a way to measure the physical part of the soil in addition to the chemistry and the biological part. So I thought this seems to be a pretty good test. And so we developed that, and we've been running quite a few samples every month. And then I get a testimony recently from a customer that has been doing things with on the range, taking lots of, well, I guess you could say monitoring type things of sensors that watching the plant growth and those kind of things. And then he said that they correlated the soil health assessment test that they took, and they found their sensors relating to the amount of plant growth is related to the soil health assessment test. Man, this is quite a deal. Maybe we ought to talk about that test a little bit to give you an idea if your soil health practices that you're doing. And it's pretty simple. The soil health thing to me is you got to keep the ground covered with plant residues, and with plant residues, and with cover crops in some cases. And if that stops erosion, and then if you can do a more diverse rotation so you can reduce your pesticides, now you already got the soil health started. I've been quoted saying that if you do those two things, reduce your pesticide application, keep the ground covered, and reduce erosion, now you can do a lot of different fancy things to enhance your testing on the soil health. But if you don't keep the ground covered all the time, or if you got to use lots of pesticides, you can't develop any more soil health. There's a lot of stuff you can do that's not really going to enhance it, but you got to do those first two things, and then you can do a lot of other things. But to have this soil health assessment test and then say, this really correlated with what we're observing in the field, that was a great testimony for me, and I would just want to tell you guys that.